Welcome to Buckets. This is Action Network's WNBA betting podcast presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Maria Marino. Excited, as always, to be joined by Action Network contributor and overall hoops savant, Jim Turvey. Jim, we have a unique situation here where we have a player coming into the league in Caitlin Clark that just has so much buzz surrounding her and has been a catalyst in many ways for all kinds of trends that we're seeing in terms of increased popularity with women's basketball and the WNBA in particular. So any other year, it might be strange to have a podcast sort of dedicated to a player, but we felt this is warranted because there are a lot of betting markets available specifically for Caitlin Clark futures. So that's what we're talking about today. Caitlin Clark futures. How do you feel about that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, it is, you laid it out well. It's funny. I was watching, there's a golf tournament today, LPGA. It's not one of their majors, but it's a big event on the golf side of things. And, I'm just casually kind of listening as I'm doing some work. And all of a sudden I hear Caitlin Clark being discussed on the women's golf broadcast about how it really is a rising tide. It's bringing viewership across all of women's sports. So it really is a unique situation here. And you and I both very much understand that the coverage is disproportional, but it also is disproportional, and it's a snowball effect. And so we have more options to bet on her. And, that's great. The more things we can bet on, the better. So I think, to your point, in a regular season, it wouldn't make any sense to do a single player specific thing. But this is not a single player that is like, any other before in terms of coverage and, ease of access to betting some of these markets that she's available at on the main books.
Right. And I also see this as an opportunity because as we run through some of these markets, we can look at the history of the league and whether or not some of these things have been done before. And so you're going to hear and learn about many other players that are both historical and current players in the league. So I think this is just fun all around. And I think it's also important to note, too, that even before this year, we've seen just steady growth across the board in all things WNBA related, whether it's viewership, yada, yada, yada. So the trends were already there. Now it's just like taken off. So without further ado, let's get into some of these markets that we have available for Caitlin Clark. And just so everyone knows, we're kind of going to just run through these pretty rapid fire, but I think you'll leave with a few ideas of things that you probably want to stay away from and maybe some things that pique your interest. So let's get right into it. The first bet that we have seen is Caitlin Clark to lead the Indiana Fever in scoring for the 2024 season. And I'm seeing odds right now, Jim, that are pretty steep, minus 380.
Yeah, so some of these markets, it's pretty interesting that maybe bettors have heard this term before, but it's a one-way market, and that's where bettors can bet Caitlin to lead the team in scoring, but you can't bet her to not lead the team in scoring. And so some of these markets, they always kind of make my eyebrows raise like a little bit of like, okay, I want to make sure that there's really a value to be had on this side of it because there's no optionality on the other side to kind of even things out, right? And you mentioned minus 380. To a degree that, that's just a number, right? What does it kind of mean? So whenever we talk about these odds, especially, I think it's really valuable to talk about it at bigger numbers like this. Because a lot of the times, if it's a spread or a total, you just see minus 110, it's about a coin flip. That's what that means, right? But minus 380 comes with a probability attached to it. And so there's like an implied probability that you think it has to happen more frequently than that. So something like minus 380, that comes with a 79.17% percentage chance of implied probability happening. So about 80%. So they're saying if you think that she's going to lead the Fever in scoring this season more than 80% of the time, and that's kind of like, imagine the world in which there's a multiverse and we simulate the season 1,000 times. How many of those is she leading the Fever in scoring? I'm not going to be on this one. Long story short, I took a long path to a short answer here. I think it's a great point. You talked about, we can leverage this Caitlin Clark podcast to shine a light on other great players in the league. Kelsey Mitchell, her teammate, you go look up at Kelsey Mitchell's college stats. They're not quite Caitlin Clark level. No one's stats are Caitlin Clark's level. Kelsey Mitchell's are really close. A lot of the numbers that Caitlin Clark, a lot of those records she was breaking belonged to Kelsey Mitchell. She led the team in scoring last year. She was at 18.2 points per game. If you made me choose who is going to lead this team in scoring, I would say yes, Caitlin Clark is the most likely. However, up at a minus 380, I think it's going to be relatively close between her and Mitchell. And Alyssa Smith is looking outstanding in the preseason as well. So I think there's a lot of options here. I'm not going to lay the minus 380 on her to lead the team in scoring.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous amount of juice there. And you talked about Kelsey Mitchell and her college career. I think it's important to note that all this, previous college season, we had the record chase for Caitlin Clark, all-time scoring leader in D1, but she first had to break the NCAA women's scoring all-time record, and Kelsey Mitchell is fourth on that list. So Clark is one, Kelsey Mitchell is fourth. So that's who she's playing with this season. You brought up Alyssa Smith. She led the team in scoring in their second preseason game, which just happened. Narrow victory over the Atlanta Dream. So that was exciting. And I also think, and we'll get into this a little bit more, we'll talk a little bit about anything related to assists, but Caitlin Clark, as much as she is known for scoring, I think maybe her best skill is her ability to facilitate, and that could easily translate. And she has way better teammates.
Yeah.
No offense to all the great Iowa players, but I mean, the teammates that she has next to her are outstanding. So I could see her being more of that facilitator than the scorer all the time. All right, next one. First basket to be a made three in the regular season. Seeing this at about minus 175. And this one I could maybe get behind.
Yeah, this one I'm a little closer to. I'm at least intrigued by this. We've seen in the preseason, she is not shy getting the shot up. And I thought it was really interesting on the broadcast today. They talked a little bit about how getting to the basket, which was such kind of a, I feel like it's very trendy to kind of say this sentence, but it is true that Caitlin has a lot of hidden skills beyond just the logo threes, right? And her ability to get to the basket was a skill that really carried her game in college. If she goes right, she's basically going to the basket. If she goes left, she's pulling up. Basically, that's kind of the scouting, the very short list scouting on Caitlin. I think that there is a chance that she's going to be taking more threes, in part because she's facing such a tougher interior defense and just on ball defense. So this one intrigues me. We talked about that implied probability on the first one. This one's more around 63, 64% implied. In her first preseason game, 13 of her 15 field goal attempts were from beyond the arc. Now, if you go back to college, she actually did take more shots inside the paint than from the perimeter. But again, this is a very different league. So let's put this one, we could do like a green, yellow, red maybe or something. The first one was red. This one's a yellow. I'm intrigued by this one at least.
I like that. And let's just run through quickly the numbers from the two preseason games that we have for her. So in the first preseason game, 5 of her 6 made field goals were threes. She took 13. So she was 5 of 13 from deep. Second game, she took 9 threes, made 2 of them. But a lot of those were early. And I think that's something I've noticed from watching her in college. She likes to get going. And I think there's no better way to sort of get going by like, hey, I'm just gonna whatever, zeros on the board, I'm gonna chuck a long 3. Like, see what happens. Like, that just seems to be the attitude. That seemed to be the attitude with her in this most recent preseason game as well. I think another thing with her is, and this might change going up against better competition, but it feels like she is more comfortable taking threes than she is anything else. She seems way more comfortable. First of all, if you see her like try a mid-range shot, something's up.
Yeah.
But like she does seem a little more comfortable. That seems to be her preferred shot. So I like the analogy. I like a yellow on this. All right, keeping it moving here. To average 22 plus points per game in the regular season, have to play at least 28 games, and a little bit less juice here, minus 160.
Yeah, so this is one where you actually can, if you shop around a little bit, you can find the second market out there. And so I would suggest, if you are either way you're betting it, shop it around so that you have both sides of that. Now, I found that in the market you can find an under on 21.9, which is basically the same thing, and you
Yeah.
can get a plus 100. So that's basically saying 50-50 chance of going under those 22 points per game. I definitely am leaning towards liking the under. I don't want to come across as the hater on this on the Caitlin Clark centric episode. However, there is a lot of history, and I know Dano got a pretty good chuckle when I did, a loose comparison saying Ari McDonald last episode. Okay, maybe that's not the perfect comp, but there is a long history of guards being drafted into the W and not scoring 22 points per game in their rookie season. I think you have a note on that here actually as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, in general, and there's been some research done by like Kevin Pelton from ESPN, for example. Like the numbers show that guards tend to not adapt quite as well, typically, as post players. But I think all of this is being said with the caveat that we really haven't seen anybody like Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
So we do have some numbers that we can look at, but this is going to be unprecedented in a lot of ways. Some numbers that I was able to find, and by the way, we have a few articles up on actionnetwork.com talking about a variety of Caitlin Clark situations. So definitely check those out. But as far as rookies go, only 2 have averaged over 20 in their rookie season. Simone Augustus, 2006, 21.9 points. Asia Wilson, 2018, 20.7 points. And again, worth noting that those are both post players. And then just for some more context, only 3 players averaged 22 plus last season. And they're buckets. I mean, Brianna Stewart, Asia Wilson, Jewel Lloyd. So that is also something to keep in mind. And I just don't know. I just don't know if I'm ready
would you actively join me on the under, or would you not? You don't want to be actively fading. You just don't want to take the over. Which side of it? Which of those two?
Yeah, I think this would still be a lukewarm situation for me. I would think I'm like you, where I would lean to the under, and then in particular for the value. Or this was a phrase that we coined on our last pod with our pal Dano Mataya, which by the way was an Eastern Conference preview pod. So if you're looking for more of like a team centric analysis, definitely check that out. But it was, what was it? Stay away and enjoy, or
yeah.
I think what Dano said was just stay away and enjoy. So I think it's important to note that like a lot of these markets, tell me if you agree, some of them are pretty outrageous, and so you got to recognize that like a lot of these things like are somewhat unprecedented, and like we're going to get into a little bit more, but that's just a general disclaimer about these. And that's why we're here to like, keep it cool, keep it in perspective. All right. Now you threw another one in our rundown, over under 6.3 assists per game on the season.
Yeah, this is one, if there's something between green and yellow, I could even give it a green. I really like the over here. So if you are looking to bet Caitlin some way, this is my favorite way to bet Caitlin. Over 6.3 assists per game. We saw it tonight. They only flashed it a few times. But man, that pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston is going to be so fun. There was one time where they left the double. It looked like the easiest basketball play you've ever seen. She just flipped it right over to Aaliyah, mid-range, bang, assists. Yeah. So she had 6 assists tonight. She also had 6 turnovers. So clearly she is looking to facilitate if her shot isn't coming easily. And like you said, that is a very not hidden part of her game at this point. I think people know how good she is on that side of things. There's incredible talent on this Fever team. She hasn't even played with Kelsey Mitchell tonight, who is arguably going to be, like we said, could be the top scorer on the team. So I really like the over on assists here. I think it's maybe my favorite way. In fact, I will say it definitely is my favorite way to play a positive bet on Caitlin to do well in her rookie year.
Wow, our first green. Is that our first green?
I think it is. I think it is. Yep.
Over 6.3 assists per game. Yeah, I could definitely see it. And she was, I think Caitlin, even in college at times, was a little turnover prone, but I
Yeah.
think that comes with being aggressive. And I always say, like, better to have turnovers because you're, you know, forcing the issue and being aggressive than just like being indecisive. And I think that's what we're seeing from her early. And I also think that as she gets more used to this pace, which I mean, she's used to playing at a high pace. Iowa, I think, was the top offense in the country,
Yeah.
but this is even another level, and I think she's going to adapt a little bit to that. A few more to get to. We have to record 130 plus made threes in the regular season, minus 125. Not bad.
So not bad on the number. This might be my reddest of red, only because honestly, it's one of those where if I just looked at it, I would have been like, yeah, okay, let's ride. Then I like dug a little bit deeper. This would literally set the WNBA record for all time. So
Yeah.
let's pump the brakes a little bit. Saying that she is better than 55% likely to break the all time record in the rookie season seems a little bit crazy. So last year, the record was set by Sabrina Ionescu, hit 128. No one else had in history cleared 121. Was Diana Taurasi back in 2006 was the last person to clear 120. Arike was second with 117 last year. This number is crazy. And again, Caitlin is unprecedented. I do understand that.
Yeah.
Setting the all-time record in your rookie season, maybe she does, but I'm not saying it's more than 55.5% likely to happen. So this is a red for me.
Red, cross it off the list. Yeah, and another note on Sabrina, because I think that probably the closest player comp we have to Caitlin Clark might be Sabrina Ionescu.
Agreed.
And for those who maybe are newer to the WNBA or, didn't follow women's college basketball until a year or two ago, like Sabrina Ionescu, like she was the Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. Like she was, it was super hype when the Liberty got her with the number 1 pick. It was a little bit of a bummer. That was the pandemic year and what have you. But the styles remind me of one another because Sab too is also a very good facilitator and also is known to sort of fill up the box score. And then it wasn't until her pro career, I would say, that she developed the 3-point shot. So she made that like part of her bag, and that is her thing now. We all saw, Steph versus Sabrina at the All-Star game, NBA All-Star game, and all that. And Sab, she pulls from deep too. So it's funny, like when people are like, "Oh, Caitlin Clark range," it's like we've been seeing the last year or two, like Sabrina pulls from the logo, she pulls from deep as well. So the fact that she hit 128 last year, and that was a record, like that's over a couple of years of development. I understand Caitlin's already, I think, like I said, Caitlin already kind of has that in her arsenal. Whereas Sab, it took a year or two for her to gain that skill. But as a pro, like, again, it's just a little bit different. So anyway, Jim said red. I'm out. Okay, moving on. To record 3+ triple doubles in the regular season, I think this might be a red for me.
Yeah, same for me. So triple doubles are just very difficult, and I will say, so she had 6 at Iowa last year. So if you assume that the level of difficulty gets more challenging, but she's certainly capable of it. I'll say this: they've really let her chase them. All 6 of them literally came with one of the stats being an exact 10. So I think that there's not going to be as much triple double chasing in the W in terms of they're going to be in tighter games. She's going to be drawing more attention. So this to me is I'll be sitting this one out.
Okay. And just for some context, so we were already talking about Sabrina. Do you know how many triple doubles Sabrina had in college? 26.
Yeah.
26. Yeah. So, I mean, still far and away the record. She has 3 in her W career
Wow.
over, I believe, 2 seasons. She definitely had one in 2021, and I think the others came in 2022. And also, FYI, Alyssa Thomas kind of became the W version of
Yep.
like the triple double queen. She had a few the last few years, but anyway, it's really hard to do. And also, again, I don't want to leave out any casuals. Just in case you are wondering, the quarters are still 10 minutes. Because I think some people think, oh, why are there more triple doubles in the NBA? Well, they're longer games. So
Yes.
just a little reminder there, that it makes it a lot harder to hit that milestone. So yeah, I think we have another red there.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if I mentioned the odds. I'm seeing about plus 190, but I still think that's a little. I don't know. I feel like I need a little more to entice me.
I'm good joining you on red there.
I'm good. All right. We are rolling along here on our little Caitlin Clark special on Buckets WNBA. Next one, to record 1+ made 3 in every game. And again, playing at least 28 games and plus money here around plus 100.
Yeah, this one, we're back to the land of the yellow. Maybe even this, I think this might be my second favorite way to positively play Caitlin Clark. I
Okay.
talked about the under on the points, but if you're looking to positively bet on, good outcomes for her, I think this is my second favorite. So this college season, she had at least 2 in every single game. And I think you don't want to overweigh what happens in preseason, but I do think it's been very notable how 3-point heavy she has been. We talked about that a little bit in the one talking about her first field goal made. She definitely is not shy as she comes to the league. Now, do I think she gets 130 of them up? No. But do I think she can consistently get enough up to, tonight she got 9 shots up. She didn't shoot it very well, but she still got 2. So getting this at about, like you said, right at plus 100. So it's about 50-50 chance of that happening. I like that. I think this is one that I could get behind.
Yeah, I could see it too. And shout out to our colleague Brian Fonseca, who will be on our Buckets WNBA pods periodically, because he was one of the aforementioned writers of articles that we have up on Action Network. And he wrote that out of 139 games played, that she made at least 1 3 in all of them. Like, that's insane.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
insane.
All but 1. Excuse me. All
Okay.
but 1.
Okay.
I read that wrong. But yeah, and just another reference point. So Sab, Arike Ngumbuale, and Jewel Lloyd each had 2 games last season that they didn't make a 3. So it just goes to show you that, like, for instance, we talked about Sab, the record, all those 3s, and she still had 2 that she didn't get 1. So
is this closer to a red for you, maybe?
No, actually.
Okay.
I think I'm with you on the yellow. Like, I think the attempts and the volume are going to be even more than those other players, because Caitlin, not to keep using this analogy, but she has the green light. Like, she's coming in with like, hey, be Caitlin. Like, we're not. I wouldn't say they're like running things around her, but like they're very much like, hey, like, you're the face of the franchise. Do whatever you want. And like I said, she's just so comfortable shooting from that range. In a lot of ways, like, her 3-pointer is a layup for others. Like, she's just so comfortable. So I'm like talking myself into this one now.
It could be a grouper.
Let's test it out, I'm thinking. But how about our next option here, which is to record 10+ made 3s in any regular season game? I'm seeing odds here ranging from plus 500 to plus 1,000.
Yeah, we're starting to get into the land of the crazy. As you said, you teased it earlier in the episode. This is definitely the ones that are starting to get, a little bit, on the more extreme side of things. I think you put a note here. The WNBA record is 9. Caitlin never got more than 9 in a game in college, although she did do it 4 times. you are getting 10-1, but I don't think I can quite get there in her rookie year. I always long shots. I do love a long shot, but this isn't the long shot for me.
And also, I think even with all the attempts, you have to be incredibly efficient to make 10. And God, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on Caitlin at all. At times, her efficiency in college, now granted, her usage was insane.
Yeah.
In fact, I read she had a 40% usage rate in her senior year. Compare that to like 28% for Sabrina Ionescu at Oregon. And Kelsey Plum had around 35%. And she was, by the way, again, when we talk about the all-time scoring list, like Kelsey Plum is now second on that list. So you're talking about like her Caitlin's usage blew them out of the water. So I don't blame her at all for at times not always being the most efficient, because it didn't matter. Like she was the offense. But that being said, yeah, to make 10 threes, like you really got to have it going on. So definitely hesitant of that. Although I wonder if that's going to still be like, I'm curious if that will still be available at certain points in the season, because I would be curious to see how she continues to develop, and if she gets onto a hot streak, or maybe she has a rough outing and maybe the next time out, goes nuts. But
or there's a game where like Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston just happen to be out, and the offensive load is entirely on her, something like that.
So now we're getting ideas for props. I like it.
Exactly.
Okay. Keep the land of the crazy coming, because the next one is to score 50 plus in any regular season game in 2024. Can find this at as high as like plus 1,600. And I looked this up before the show. Her highest scoring game at Iowa was actually the night, go figure, that she broke the NCAA women's scoring record. She wanted to get it out of the way. She scored 49. And if you look at some, she's had many other games with like 44 or 40, whatever, like up there. But yeah, 50 ball in the W, that's hard.
Should we tie this into the next one as well? Because I feel like it kind of goes into tying the historical context of what 50 means in the W too.
Sure. Okay. So the next one, to break the WNBA single game scoring record, which is currently at 53 points. Liz Cambage set that a couple seasons ago, and then Asia Wilson tied it last season. So she would have to get 54 plus points for this bet to hit, but you are seeing like plus 3,000 odds out there.
Yeah, I think if you're going to go with it, you go with the 54. I was kind of surprised by the gap between 50 and 54. I mean, it's a couple buckets, but to get basically double the payout, at that point, I think you just go for the record.
Yeah,
I'm probably not going to play either of these, to be honest. I don't hate it. I don't hate, put $5 here and have fun watching the games with the cheese that's really going off. But for me, this is one I'm not going to be playing.
And once again, with the usage not being the same as it would be in college, and with her having incredibly talented teammates, it's just harder to see. Now, if she had been drafted, say this was like a couple seasons ago, and you hadn't had like an Aaliyah Boston already drafted, or a Nalissa Smith who was drafted the year before, number 2 pick, or you know what I mean? Like now we've had a couple seasons of the Indiana Fever sort of building out this roster where they went through their, like if it was a season with no expectations and she's just a stud and everybody else is like, the team isn't that strong, maybe. I don't know. That's just
no. I think you're right. You're right to a degree. But I think the only counter to that is the W is so good that I think that even when you're the only one, it's tough. Like think about Sabrina came in and she really, was a 2-30 Liberty team. There was not a lot there going on her sophomore year when she really started to play a bunch, and she averaged 18 points a game, but 18 points a game is a far cry from like she was the usage. Yes. She had a ton of usage, and even still she couldn't clear 20 points a game because the W is so hard. It really is. That's the point that I think is a little bit lost on some of these props maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And again, Liz Cambage and Asia Wilson, both post players. And it's just a little different. This would be really, really wild. All right. Got a couple more I want to mention, particularly from our pal Danny Barlavi. They recommended a bet Caitlin Clark under 3.5 3-pointers per game. I'm going to direct you to their article. I'm not even going to give the analysis, but they like that bet and we trust them.
Yeah, Denny Barlavi, tail them on everything. They're great. I will definitely be on that as well.
Yeah. And that's obviously to average across the season. And then finally, to lead the league in scoring, plus 700. And in short, no rookie has done this. Arike Ngumbawale did it in her second year. So that's something to note.
Yeah, again, I think this comes down to this. I think you've framed it perfectly in the last discussion of this Fever team has kind of built out a roster where I don't think that Caitlin, I think she knows that she doesn't have to lead the league into her. I think that's like it keeps it, game script. This is like season script, right? We kind of see Caitlin in a more giving role, more creative role, not needing to have that insane usage that she had. She said that part of the reason she declared this year was to go to Indiana to partner with Aaliyah Boston because she thought that was such a good fit for her game. I think she's going to be, if we had an assist leader market, that would be the long shot I'd want to get in on. Unfortunately, I have not seen it. If you have seen it, message me directly, please. Yeah. We will chat. But I have not seen that one. Yeah, the pick and roll
with Aaliyah Boston. It is beautiful. And Aaliyah Boston, by the way, let's just shout her out real quick. We talked about this a little bit on the East preview, but I mean, she was an all-star as her Rookie of the Year campaign transpired last year. And so this is just a really, really exciting duo. And that is pretty much everything that we have seen thus far. I mean, it's a lot. Again, it was worthy of an episode, worthy of a conversation. Jim, why don't you just run through once more, recap the bets that you like and or are leaning toward?
Yeah, so I think my three favorite, I'll lead with the positive. I'll say over 6.3 points per game. And again, if you see an assist leader market out there, genuinely, please message me on Twitter.
Assists per game. That's what you said, right? Okay.
Yep. Now I'll follow Danny on under 3.5 threes per game, and I would do under 21.9 points per game as well. Those would be my three favorites. The leans, the ones I could kind of talk myself into, are for Caitlin to make 1 3 in every game at plus 100, and for her first basket of her career to be a made 3 in the regular season at minus 175. Those were the two yellow lights that I was intrigued by. And honestly, I think by the end that plus 100 to record a 3 in every game, I think we both were kind of vibing on that one by the end.
I think that's my favorite, especially because of the price, at least getting plus money. I do really like the first basket to be a made 3. I just don't like it's fun. I just don't know if it's necessarily worth the juice. But what I would recommend too is keep an eye on the markets, because we have seen a little bit of number fluctuating. So, keep an eye on it and you might get a favorable number as we move along over the next few days. Whew. Okay. So that was fun. Just a reminder, Eastern Conference preview is out on Buckets WNBA. Western Conference preview is out. Check those out. We'll be back Tuesday for opening day. Can't believe it's here already. The Fever are just one of, I think 4 teams are playing. I think
4 games.
4 games.
Teams. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got a full slate. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about for the Tuesday episode. Make sure you join us for that. And as a reminder, we are presented by BetMGM. If you haven't already, download our award-winning Action app. You can track our picks. You can track your picks. It's just a super great tool. We have the WNBA markets up within that app, so it makes it really, really easy. And also, if you're new to us, please subscribe to the pod. Get to know us a little bit. Guarantee you'll have a good time this summer, because sorry, but who really wants to bet on baseball? You might as well just listen to us. Okay, it's getting spicy. I better get out of here.
Oh boy, Sean Zerillo is gonna come knocking on the door and then have something to say.
No, love Sean. I'm sorry. That was mean. I was just joking. But for Jim Turvey, I'm Maria Marino. Let's get buckets.